Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Fantasy Griddle podcast, episode 3. Check us out at fantasygriddle.com for fantasy news, rankings, and more. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Fantasy Griddle. I am your host, Mike Potashnik. Beside me is my esteemed colleague, Duncan Murphy. Duncan, what are we talking about tonight?
On today's episode, we're talking running back busts, breakouts, and sleepers. Plus, we're going to answer the question, who is this year's Alvin Kamara?
All right, so I'll go first. My glaring bust, I have Joe Mixon of the Cincinnati Bengals. He is currently going as the 16th ranked RB and 26th overall. I wasn't super impressed with him last year. The Bengals actually ran the 4th fewest run plays in the entire NFL. I feel like he's going to split a lot of time with Gio Bernard, especially in passing situations. And Andy Dalton's play can really kind of dictate how the Bengals are going to go offensively and also dictate that run game. Last year, Andy Dalton threw for just 3,300 yards, was under 60% completions, and had 15 turnovers, which I really think is going to stall out that offense and make it difficult for Joe Mixon to get into a rhythm. In college, he combined for just over 300 carries over the course of 2 seasons, maxing out just shy of 1,300 yards and 10 touchdowns his senior year, which when you compare to the other running backs that have been coming out as rookies the past few years, like Dalvin Cook or Rashad Penny, that's really not elite production. So I don't see him being an elite workhorse running back in college compared to some of those other options out there. And I also wasn't that impressed with him last year.
I kind of am on board with you there. A lot of people have been really high on Mixon, and he never really has impressed me as much as people seem to think that he's this great running back. What's his ADP?
He's going 26th overall, the 16th ranked running back, so he's going right at the end of round 2, the turn with round 3.
I mean, that's way too soon for a guy who has never put up that kind of production. And, you know, the opportunity cost there is so huge because you could take a guy who's already been producing for years and you're just betting on a guy. Like, for him to return that value, it would make sense to take him in like the 3rd or 4th round, but you're probably not going to get him at that price.
No, certainly not. And where the Bengals are constantly down and throwing, they rely a lot on A.J. Green and that passing game. And I think Gio Bernard is so effective out of the backfield that he's going to stay on the field in a lot of 2-minute drill situations or at the end of halves. And I just don't see Mixon being worth the pick there.
All right. Well, let me give you my bust, and his name is Devonta Freeman.
Here's a nice piece of shit.
Devonta Freeman, he's going 17th overall right now. He's the number 11 ranked 11th? He's the 11th ranked running back. My major concern here is his injury history. He's got a very troublesome concussion history. He has 3 concussions in his NFL career, 2 concussions in the last year. He actually had 2 within a 3-month period. So very troublesome, especially when you have a repeat concussion. You're much more likely to get another one. So I think that's a serious concern here, especially taking him this high. The second time he had the concussion, they gave him a grade 2, which means he lost. I'll give you the definition. Sounds pretty terrible. Brief loss of consciousness and confusion and amnesia, lasting 20 minutes or more. So, I mean, these are serious injuries, and you're talking about a guy right here that you're taking as this in the 2nd round. And not only that, he's had additional injuries. So he had 5 injuries in the last 12 months. He had last year in the playoffs, he had played with a sprained MCL and PCL in his knee. He played through it. He also managed to avoid off-season surgery. But I mean, those are a lot of injuries just stacking up for Freeman here. And the other thing you got to look at is his workload. And he's had a steady decline in his workload. Starting in 2015, where he had 73 catches. After that, he had 54 catches in 2016, and then he had just 36 catches on 46 targets last year. So for him to return to be an elite running back, he's going to need to have 50-plus catches. And the trends are not going in the right direction for him there. He's got Tevin Coleman in the backfield, who I think he's going to continue to contribute more and more as his career goes on. In terms of carries, Freeman only had 5 games last year with more than 12 carries. And one of those was when Coleman wasn't even in the game in week 15. That was also one of 3 times where he had more than 3 catches. Okay, so let me repeat that for you. He only had 5 games with 12 or more carries. You're taking him in the 2nd round. He's going to be your running back 1. That doesn't make sense. So for me, he's a clear bust candidate, and there's absolutely no way I'm taking him at that IDP.
I couldn't agree more on Devonta Freeman. If I didn't talk about Mixon, it was going to be Freeman because, like you said, the workload trends have been staggering. The workload split with Tevin Coleman has always concerned me, but the carries the past 3 years for Freeman, they've gone from 264 down to 227, down again last year to 196. And Coleman is going the opposite direction. He's going up every year. 87 to 118 to 156 last year. So he had 40 less carries, but you're getting pretty close to an even split. Receptions for Freeman have gone all the way down to 36 last season, and Coleman's had 27 and 31 the past 2 seasons. So they're right there again with an even split. It's Coleman's last year with the team in all likelihood, and we've seen this as a trend with many teams to run the running backs into the ground their final season with the team. I think that's going to happen with Le'Veon Bell in Pittsburgh, and I think it could happen here again in Atlanta with Coleman. It doesn't matter what kind of shape he's in going into next year if they're not going to re-sign him. Freeman only out-targeted Coleman 47 to 39, and even still, Coleman had a 3-1 edge in touchdowns in the receiving game. I think Matt Ryan holds back this entire offense. Do not invest a second-round pick in Devonta Freeman. Get yourself a wide receiver instead. You will be disappointed if you take Devonta Freeman in the second. My breakout player for 2018 is actually Rashad Penny. Looking at his college statistics, he had over 2,200 yards and 23 touchdowns last season. He was number 1 in yards after contact per attempt in all of college football with 4.47 yards after contact. That's great. That's an awesome number, especially when the Seahawks have the 31st ranked offensive line. He runs a 4.46 40, and he's 220 pounds, so he's a big guy, but still very fast. I think Russell Wilson is going to do great things for this offense, and if Rashad Penny is their starting running back, I expect him to have a monster year. Russell Wilson even had the ability to make Christine Michael look good just 2 years ago. Make sure that you take Rashad, worth every penny on draft day. Get him in the 4th round of your fantasy draft. And if you can, handcuff him with Chris Carson just in case as a late-round pick.
I like that. That's a good name. Rashad Penny Loafer. You could call your team name that. All right, let me give you my breakout. And he's a guy that I am really, really excited about this year. I think he's a fantastic player, and he's a great value pick. So he goes by the name of Tarik Cohen. He is the 80th overall pick right now. He's going round 7, 32nd running back off the board. Before I talk about Cohen, we first need to talk about the coaching changes they've made in Chicago this year. So last year, the Bears averaged the fewest offensive plays in the league under John Fox, who I just can't stand John Fox. I don't know why he was a coach in the league for so long, but I digress. So now they bring in Matt Nagy, he's the former offensive coordinator for Kansas City. And if you remember, Kansas City last year they were very efficient. They ran a pretty advanced offense featuring these new RPOs, the run pass option plays with Alex Smith. So they're gonna have a combination of some different things this year. But Kansas City last year, they averaged 25.9 points per game, which was the fifth highest in the league. They bring in Nagy. I think it's Nagy, I don't know. So they hire Matt Nagy to be the new head coach. Nagy goes ahead and brings in former Oregon Ducks offensive coordinator Mark Helfrich, who he's known as a no-huddle spread game guru. So they're going to combine methodologies here, and they're going to run an extremely fast-paced offense. So up-tempo, shotgun-heavy, run-pass option schemes. They're going to feature Mitch Trubisky, 2nd overall pick of last year, and they're kind of building this new style offense that is going to be really exciting to watch. One player they're extremely high on is Cohen, and I think for good reason. So talking about Cohen, the reason that I like him is that he's extremely versatile. They're comparing him to Tyreek Hill, and what they did with Tyreek Hill in Kansas City was pretty incredible. They think Cohen can run between the tackles. They're splitting him out wide, and they're gonna serve him as a jet sweep machine. And when you look at the skill set there, let me give you a few numbers. So last year, Cohen totaled 1,578 all-purpose yards, and that nearly matched Tyreek Hill's rookie year, which he put up 1,800 yards. So pretty close. Cohen became the first NFL rookie since Hall of Famer Gale Sayers in 1965 to score touchdowns via rushing, receiving, passing, and punt returns in a single season. So the guy can do it all. He's pretty amazing. I don't know if you've seen the video of him doing a backflip, catching footballs. It's ridiculous. Recently, I saw a clip of him on NFL Network talking about the new offense and what he's going to be doing. And when they asked him about it, I'll just give you the quote. He said, "I feel like if I could kick the football, he'd also want me to kick the football. It just goes to show you how many places he has me at. I've been everywhere. I've been at every position. It's crazy." So training camp reports are saying that Cohen is lining up at running back, at slot receiver, at outside receiver. He's also got several factors working in his favor here. He's a sturdy, compact guy. I don't think he's going to get injured easily. He's already proven that he can take a hit. And this offense is custom built for Mitch Trubisky mostly, but also they're plugging in a player that is going to be a perfect fit for him. Similar to Kamara last year, I think there's room in this offense for both Howard and Cohen to end up as top 20 running backs this year. And I know that sounds kind of crazy because some people don't really see Cohen as being that valuable of a player, but he's currently going around 7. I think he's a great value pick, and he's my pick for breakout player of the year.
Okay, and that leads me into my sleeper pick, a guy I'm very excited about. I aim to have him on every single one of my teams this year at an affordable price, and it is Jamaal Williams of the Green Bay Packers. This is more of a statement on the starting running back position of the Packers than it is for Jamaal Williams. Aaron Rodgers is obviously back and has consistently helped running backs to post high-end production. He made Eddie Lacy into a first-round fantasy pick a few years ago. Eddie Lacy has since eaten his way out of the league. He turned wide receiver Ty Montgomery into an RB1, and both Aaron Jones and Jamaal Williams both had their time as top waiver wire pickups last season when Montgomery went down. Aaron Jones is suspended the first 2 games this year, so Jamaal Williams will get the start in the first 2 games and will have the opportunity to run away with that position. Montgomery has shown durability issues and is really a wide receiver converted to running back who may be converting back into more of a hybrid role, and the departure of Jordy Nelson could help lead to that role as well. Jamaal Williams, he averaged 4.6 yards per carry, and he had 5 touchdowns in the final 6 games of last season. In the final 8 games of the season, he had 20-plus touches 6 times, so they really leaned on him down the stretch. And in those 6 games, he averaged 110 yards and just under a touchdown per game. That is elite production from your running back spot. If you can get this guy and put him into your flex spot, that's huge, and he could even fill in as an RB2. He started last night and scored a touchdown. I know it's preseason, but he did start last night and scored. Take Jamaal Williams in round 8 and come back a few rounds later with Aaron Jones.
And what's the ADP on Williams?
Williams is going 89th overall. He's the 41st running back, and I have him as my number 20 running back.
Wow, so you are high on him, huh?
Very, very. I've always gone after the Green Bay run game, and even if it's not Jamaal Williams and you miss there, you'll have handcuffed him with Aaron Jones, and you'll be all set.
Yeah, I like that plan. Yeah, I seem to remember you having a few shares of Eddie Lacy back in the day.
Yeah, I took him in the first round that year, and total bust. Total bust.
Oh, man.
Awful. And even worse for the Seahawks. Absolute debacle. And now he's just, who knows where he is now. Maybe he's dead.
It's like that scene in Dodgeball where he's sitting on the couch and he's spare me. He's overweight eating a bag of Doritos. Anyway, all right, Mike. So my sleeper this year, he is the new running back for the Detroit Lions, Kerryon Johnson. He was picked in the 2nd round this year, pick 11, coming out of Auburn. And I think this guy has a chance to become a superstar on the NFL at the NFL level. He walks into a situation where they've got really nobody fantastic in the backfield. I think Amir Abdullah has completely blown it. They drafted him with high hopes, but he really hasn't done much. They have Theo Riddick, who we know what Theo Riddick is. He's going to catch a lot of balls in the backfield, but really not compete for carries. LeGarrette Blount, they bring him in. Blunt's a beast, but he doesn't concern me, especially considering where they took this guy. I mean, you don't spend a high second pick on a player and then don't give him the ball. Last year, when he played for Auburn, he did everything on the field. He ran the Wildcat. He was extremely explosive. He is a very instinctive runner. He's got great vision. So I'm very high on him. He's also got pretty good size. He's 6'2", 213. He's a pretty big back, pretty much ideal size for a running back. The offensive line there is also fantastic now. I mean, last year they were the 19th ranked offensive line. They've jumped up 11 spots this year on Pro Football Focus rankings, and right now they have Detroit at number 8, and that's really good. I mean, you're running behind a very strong offensive line. They also have Matthew Stafford, who I know you love using Matthew Stafford and a great receiving core, so they're not going to be able to stack the box against this guy. He's going to have a lot of room to work with. In the draft, Detroit also picked the top-rated center, Arkansas's Frank Ragnow, in the first round. So they're giving him the tools that he needs to work with. He's going to have a bunch of absolute beasts on the line to run behind. He's got Marvin Jones, Golden Tate, and Kenny Golladay to distract defenses. So I think Kerryon Johnson is a great value pick. He's going to be a player that you can get fairly late. Kerryon Johnson is going 81st overall in drafts this year, which is the 35th ranked running back. And I see him finishing the year as a potential running back 2, which puts him inside the top 24. So he's a guy you can get pretty late, and I think he's a good value pick, and he's my sleeper pick for this year. All right, so now we're going to talk about a question on everyone's mind this year is who is the next Alvin Kamara? And I think we need to preface this by saying that I don't think there's going to be another Alvin Kamara this year. I mean, what he did was just ridiculous. He had an average draft position last year of the 13th round. In our draft, which is a pretty competitive league, he went undrafted. And people were thinking that he couldn't do anything. He ends up as being a top 10 overall scoring back. Now he's ranked in the top 6 in drafts. So it's pretty unlikely that this is going to happen again. But what we're going to do here is we're going to pick a rookie running back, a guy who's currently not the starter on his team, but has the chance to produce like a running back 1 for you as the season progresses. So that's kind of the idea that we're going with here. So Pitesh, why don't you give me your guy here? Who's going to be this year's Alvin Kamara?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you said that it's going to be tough to duplicate because it certainly is. The year that Kamara had was incredible and not something you can expect every year. But I think a guy that can come close is Kalen Ballage. He's a Miami Dolphin this year, 4th-round pick for them. His skill set is to be a receiving back out of the backfield, so he should easily be inserted into their third down and passing role situation into Miami as their third down receiving back, 2-minute drill, up-tempo offense, all that stuff. He can help make up for the loss of Jarvis Landry in the short passing game. They did bring in Frank Gore as a running back, but Frank Gore is old. He should have been out of the game years ago, but he can't stay home because he hates his wife. Kenyon Drake was a 3rd-string running back last year who was awful in all of college. He never got a full workload. He's never managed a full workload for a full season. Last year, they had to get rid of Jay Ajayi, and Damian Williams had to fade away before he could take over in the run game there. They brought in Gore to compete with Drake for the rushing downs, and they brought in Ballage for a reason. And the reason they brought him in is to score you fantasy points and be this year's Alvin Kamara.
I like it. I watched the game last night in the preseason. He looked pretty good. I mean, he looked explosive, and despite he had a fumble, but he was actually jumping over someone's head when he dropped the ball. So pretty impressive from Ballage. So let me tell you my guy. All right, my Alvin Kamara this year is Nyheim. I can't even say his name. Nyheim Hines. He is going 135th overall, which is the 12th round. He's the number 47 running back off the board. And let me tell you a little bit about Nyheim Hines. Okay, so he was drafted by the Colts, round 4 out of NC State. He ran the fastest 40-yard dash among all running backs in this year's draft class at 4.38. So this guy can fly. He's an outside zone runner, which is what the Colts are going to run this year. Last year in college, in his career, he had 22 career starts, 12 at running back and 10 at wide receiver. So the guy can catch the ball out of the backfield. He can run routes. And if you're going to be, that fits the mold perfectly for what Kamara could do. And playerprofiler.com compares him to CJ Spiller. So he's an explosive player. NFL.com gave him a draft grade of 5.52, which, according to that, is a chance to become an NFL starter. Compare that to Kamara, who had a draft grade of 6.02, which should become an NFL starter. So they're not too far apart in the draft grade process. How about a few weaknesses? Kamara was overlooked. Sean Payton obviously saw something, and they moved up to pick him in the draft, but they had no idea what was going to happen here. And so for Hines, some of the weaknesses that they list in his draft profile: he lacks feel for blocking in front of him, hasn't learned to hug the lane and flow away from traffic just yet. Weakness for Kamara: vision can be hit or miss. Are you kidding me? That's ridiculous. Why would they think that? He was unbelievable. going on. I mean, so vision can be hit or miss for Kamara. Not an instinctive runner, needs to see running lane develop, and is missing a feel for reading progressions of blocks. They were way off on Kamara, and I think they might be way off on Hines. Hines went a little bit later. He was a 4th-round pick out of NC State, and bottom line for Hines in his draft profile is, I'll just read this to you. Hines' value to teams could rest upon how they envision using him. It's possible that he benefits from the success of Saints rookie Alvin Kamara, with teams looking to plug him into that role, but he's not on Kamara's level. Hines is a linear runner whose ability to cut and burst would fit into a team looking for a change of pace back in an outside zone run scheme, which is exactly what Indianapolis is running this year. Some people think Marlon Mack's going to be the guy. Personally, I don't think that he's really that great. I think the fact that they're looking at players like Nyheim Hines as well as Jordan Wilkins, who was drafted a couple of rounds later, tells you that they're not confident in what they have in Marlon Mack. So, one thing as well is Hines flashed home run potential. He had touchdowns last year of 83 yards, 54 yards, 50 yards, and 48 yards. Pair that with what he's going to be running behind this year and the Colts offensive line. Pro Football Focus ranks them as the 17th offensive line. They're +8 from last year. They go out and pick Quentin Nelson, the number 6 overall pick out of Notre Dame. He's going to plug in immediately at left guard, and all signs point to him being a Pro Bowl level player immediately. They also added Auburn guard Braden Smith in the 2nd round, and now they have 3 first-round picks on that line. They've got Quentin Nelson, Anthony Costanzo, and Ryan Kelly, who's been battling some injuries, but if he comes back healthy, their line is going to be nasty. They're going to be crushing people, and they're going to be opening up some huge running lanes to go through. Hines has the small body. He's 5'8", 198. He's going to be able to hide behind those massive linemen and just explode through the lanes, similar to what Kamara's done. Kamara's a little bit heavier, 214, but I think this guy has the potential to be the next Alvin Kamara. He's going extremely late in drafts. He's a forgotten man right now. He's going in round 12. So when you get to that point of the draft, you're looking for upside. If you see Nyheim Hines in the 12th round, put him on your team. I'm telling you, he's going to pay off. Even if he doesn't pay off, you cut him and you move on. The other thing with the Colts that you have to be aware of is they brought in Frank Reich from the Eagles this year. And Reich last year, he was interchanging all these different running backs in Philadelphia. So they've got a few different backs in Indianapolis. There's a chance that they could be swapping them in and out quite a bit. So I don't know if he's going to be able to produce at quite the level of Alvin Kamara, but in my mind, he's the best bet to be this year's Alvin Kamara.
Mistakes were made last season. I did not believe in Alvin Kamara. I saw Adrian Peterson on that depth chart. I saw Mark Ingram on that depth chart, and I stayed away.
You were touting Peterson, I remember.
I definitely thought that he would have
touting.
a role. No, I never touted him.
Oh, you touted him. He was touted.
I really didn't tout him. I hated him last year.
How about when he got in the fight with Peyton on the sidelines? That was classic.
Yeah, that was incredible. And that was the moment I knew that they were going to ship him out of New Orleans, was when he was doing that stupid face at Sean Payton, and you could just tell that it was not going to work out, that he was holding back that offense. He was holding back Ingram. He was holding back Kamara. Do not make the same mistakes that we made last year. If Hines is there, invest a late round pick in him. Don't take some other guy that we already know who they are, what their role is. Take the upside. That's going to do it for us here tonight. Make sure that you check us out on fantasygriddle.com for fantasy news, rankings, and more. As always, make sure to follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Fantasy Griddle. Duncan, what do we have coming up next week?
Next week on the Griddle, we're going to be talking wide receivers. If you've got any questions, tweet at us. Let us know what you think of the show. Please leave a comment, follow us, and share with your friends. Right now, we're available on Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, and SoundCloud, and shortly we're going to be on iTunes. A little bit of an iTunes issue right now with Apple, but soon we'll be on Apple as well. So thanks so much for tuning in. See you soon.